It's Fired Up Friday, and welcome to the Bad Influence Podcast with yours truly, Jordan Banderas. Listen to what I must tell you today, because this can help you understand why you're afraid of being still. The loudest person in the room is usually the most afraid of what will show up in the silence. Somewhere along the way, you were sold a lie and you never even noticed you bought it. The lie says this: if you're not moving, you're not working. If you're not producing, you're wasting time. If you're quiet, you're falling behind. Everyone around you believes it. The culture built its whole engine on it. Hustle, grind, never stop, rise and grind, sleep when you're dead. You've heard those phrases so many times, they stop sounding like slogans and start sounding like the truth. So you build your whole life around constant motion. And I see a lot of people doing this. My wife used to do this. Always doing something, always producing something, always proving something. And somewhere in there, you started treating stillness like the enemy. Quiet started to feel like falling behind. Rest started to feel like an excuse. It's stopping, even for 10 minutes. It started to feel like something you'd have to justify. But here's what nobody told you when they sold you that lie. Constant motion isn't discipline. No, it is not. It's the easiest thing in the world to do because it never asks you to actually sit with anything. Discipline is being able to stop. Discipline is sitting in the quiet long enough to hear what's actually going on inside you, instead of drowning it out with one more task, one more scroll, one more thing to check off. You've had that backwards your whole adult life. You call the person who never stops moving discipline. But again, that's not discipline. That's avoidance wearing a work ethic as a costume. Real discipline is harder than that. That's why it's hard to do, and a lot of people don't want to do it. Real discipline is sitting still when every part of you wants to reach for something, anything, to make the quiet go away. And I know because I used to do this as well. Think about the last time you actually sat still. No phone, no task, no noise. Not for meditation content, not for a productivity hack, just still. Can you even remember it? Probably not, because you've spent years building a life that runs from silence the second it shows up. And here's the worst part of this. You call that ambition. But guess what? It's not ambition. It's the exact opposite of the discipline you think you have. The culture taught you that noise equals worth. And you build your entire identity on top of that lie without ever checking if it was true. But I'm here to tell you, it's not true. Today, you find out what's actually been running your life this whole time. Motion or the fear of what stillness will finally make you face. This didn't start with you deciding stillness was dangerous. It started with a system that makes actual money every time you move instead of sit still. Think about how the feed actually works. Post something, show something, say something, do something visible, and you get rewarded. It like a view, a little spike of attention that feels like proof you exist. Now, think about what happens when you post nothing, when you do nothing, when you're just quietly still, off camera for a whole day. nothing happens. No reward, no spike, no proof. The algorithm doesn't know you're resting. It doesn't know you're thinking. It just knows you went quiet. And quiet doesn't get pushed to anyone. So, somewhere along the way, your body learned the same lesson the algorithm was teaching everyone around you. Because there's a lesson that the algorithm teaches everyone. Visible equals valuable. Quiet equals invisible. And invisible started to feel like disappearing. Nobody explained this to you directly. Nobody sat you down and said, silence will make you disappear now. You just watched it happen over and over, every single day, one feed at a time. You watch the loud posts get attention. We all have seen that, right? You watch the quiet person get scrolled past. You watch being still, being unseen, even for an afternoon, start to feel like falling behind everyone who kept moving. So you adapted. Because that's what a smart person does when they learn what the environment actually rewards. That's exactly what we all get trained to do. You start filling every quiet moment with something. A video, a scroll, a task, anything that kept you moving instead of sitting still. Because it kept you visible, kept you registering as active instead of gone. And it worked. In the same sense, in the sense that it did exactly what you built it to do. It kept the feeling of being erased away. But here's what it actually cost you without you noticing. You train your whole body to treat quiet as a threat. Not because quiet is actually dangerous, because it is not. This happened because an algorithm built by people who profit off your attention taught you that quiet gets you nothing. And you believed it. The same way everyone around you believed it. Because everyone around you was getting the exact same lesson at the exact same time. That's not a personal flaw. That's a system working exactly as designed on you and on everyone you know. All at once. Here's the part you have to actually sit with, though. That system doesn't care whether you're okay. It doesn't care if you ever sit still again for the rest of your life. It profits either way. It profits more, actually, the more restless you stay. So it has zero interest in ever teaching you the update. Nobody's coming to tell you that stillness is safe now. That quiet isn't actually disappearing. That the fear you feel the second things go silent was manufactured, not discovered. You have to find that out yourself. Because the system that installed the fear has no reason to ever take it back out. Think about how much of your day is built to avoid a moment of actual quiet. The second something ends, you reach for the next thing before the ending even finishes. You know this happens. You know I'm right. A show ends. You're already scrolling for the next one. A task finishes. You're already looking for the next task. Oh, I used to do this a lot. My wife used to do this a lot. And probably you're doing it right now, or you used to do it a lot. And a quiet car ride turns into a podcast, a call, anything but the road and your own mind. That's not curiosity. That's flight. You are running from silence the exact way you were trained to. And here's what you have to understand about that training. It wasn't built to make you productive. No, it wasn't. It was built to make you engage constantly, because engagement is the product and you are the raw material. Nobody who built that system was thinking about whether you ever learn how to be still again. That wasn't their problem to solve. It was not. If you look at how social media and the algorithm works, you will understand this. Because at the end of the day, it's yours to solve. Right now, somewhere in you, there's a rule that says silence equals disappearing. And that rule wasn't handed down by your parents or your culture growing up or one relationship that hurt you. No. It was handed to you by a feed, one scroll at a time, until it stopped feeling like a lesson and started feeling like just how you are. Restless, can't sit still, always needs something going. That's not your personality, and that's not ADHD, as many people will call it. That's a trained response to a system that makes money off your discomfort with quiet. And the system doesn't know your actual life. It doesn't know that the quiet you're avoiding is exactly where you finally hear the thing you've been drowning out for years. It just knows that keeping you moving keeps you profitable. So, it kept you moving. And you've been calling that discipline this whole time, when really it was just obedience to a system that needed you loud. Notice it right now. That low hum under your skin that won't fully settle. Not anxious exactly. Not bored exactly. Just restless. Like something needs to happen even when nothing actually does. Sit down with nothing to do. No phone, no task, no noise. And count how many seconds pass before your hand reaches for something anyway. 5? Maybe 10 if you're lucky. That's not a coincidence. That's the training, running exactly the way it was built to run. You know this is true. Feel where it actually sits in your body. Not one clean spot. It's spread out. Hands that want to move, legs that won't stay still, a general static running just under the surface everywhere at once. It's not asking for anything specific. No, it is not. It's just insisting that something needs to happen right now. Anything. Just whatever it is, just make it happen, right? Think about how many times a day that home shows up. In line at the store, waiting for a reply, the 3 seconds between one task ending and the next one starting. You feel every single one of those gaps without even deciding to. Phone out. Scroll started. Gap close. And you've done that so many times, you don't experience it as a choice anymore. It just happens. The way blinking just happens. It's automatic. Here's what that's actually costing you in your body every single day. You've forgotten what your own mind sounds like without something playing over it. Oh yeah, yes you have. And I know how that feels because I did that. Think about the last time you had an actual unfilled hour and just sat there in your own head with nothing running. If you can't remember, that's the whole point. Because a mind that never gets left alone doesn't get quieter over time. It gets louder. It gets more restless. It starts needing bigger and faster inputs just to feel like anything's happening at all. That's why silence feels unbearable now. Not because silence is actually unbearable, because it is not. If you think about it and you can sit in the silence, you will understand what I'm saying. This is because you've spent years training your body to expect noise, and now the absence of it feels like something wrong, even when nothing is wrong. Your jaw carries some of it, tight in the moments right before you normally reach for your phone out of habit. Your chest carries some of it as well, a tightness that shows up the second a room goes quiet and stays quiet. But The restlessness carries most of it because it doesn't point anywhere specific. It just keeps you moving, keeps you reaching, keeps you anywhere except still. Think about your actual sleep. You lay down, body exhausted, and your mind is still going. It's still scanning. It's still looking for the next thing to land on. That's not a full day catching up with you, because I have seen people call it that. That's a body that's forgotten how to come to a complete stop, because stopping completely was trained out of you a long time ago, probably years ago. And here's the part that should actually bother you, because it should. You've started calling this restlessness being driven. You've started calling the inability to sit still ambition. It's neither of those things. It's a body that flinches at quiet the same way it might flinch at an actual threat, except the threat isn't real. It's a feed that needed you loud, and it got its wish. Think about how many good ideas you've lost because you never gave your own mind a quiet minute to actually finish a thought. The half-formed idea, the insight that almost surfaced, the thing you almost realize about your own life, right before you reach for your phone and drowned it out. That's gone now, not because it wasn't worth finishing, because you never let the quiet last long enough for it to land, to complete, to come out. This is what living restless costs you. Not just tired eyes and a busy calendar. It costs you access to your own mind. The one place nobody else can reach. The one place every real idea you've ever had was actually going to come from. And right now, that place is buried under a hum that never fully quiets down. Think about how foreign real stillness feels to you now. Not numbness, not distraction disguised as calm, actual quiet, actually held, without reaching for anything to fill it. If that feels almost impossible to imagine, that's not who you are. That's just how deep the training runs. Your body has been taught over and over that stopping means disappearing. And it's been running this lie. It's been running from that lie every single day since. One filled silence at a time. That hum is in your personality. It's a signal. And right now, it's telling you something true. That the quiet you've been avoiding your whole adult life is exactly where you finally hear yourself again. The restlessness isn't who you are. It's what happens to a person trained to fear the one thing that could actually settle them. You know this is true. Feel it and understand it. And I want you to stop looking at the restlessness and start looking at what it's protecting you from finding out. Because the restlessness was never really about needing something to do. It's about a room you've been avoiding walking into. And here's the truth hiding under all that motion. Some part of you likes staying busy. Yeah, you like it. You love it. Not because it feels good, because it means you never have to sit in the quiet long enough to hear what's actually in there. As long as you keep moving, you never have to find out what shows up once everything else finally stops. That's the shadow. Not the restlessness itself. The relief hiding inside the restlessness. The quiet comfort of never actually being alone with your own mind. Because if you finally sat still, really still, for real, you might hear something you've been outrunning for years. A truth about your life you don't love. A decision you've been avoiding. A feeling you buried under emotion so long ago you forgot it was still down there. Think about that and you're going to understand that this is true. So instead, you keep the noise running, not because you need to accomplish that much, because silence might make you actually face something. And motion, yes, motion, never asks you to face anything at all. You call that being productive. It's not productive. It's a shield built to protect you from an hour alone with your own thoughts. Sit with that. Yes, sit with it. If you never let yourself go still, you get to keep avoiding that room forever and call the avoiding hustle. That story is comfortable. It is, huh? Except it's costing you the one thing stillness was always going to give you. Because a person who never stops moving never actually finds out what they're moving away from. Think about that. Here's what's happening while you avoid that answer. Because something happens. Every day you fill with noise instead of quiet, the distance between the life you're running and the life you'd actually choose gets a little wider. Not loud, wide. Quiet enough that you still function completely fine. Wide enough that you feel it the second the noise finally stops for a second too long. That's what restlessness has been keeping score of the whole time. The gap. Growing. And here's who you're becoming while it grows. Because you are becoming somebody. You're becoming someone who's always busy and never actually arriving anywhere. Someone people describe as driven, productive, always on. And privately, someone who hasn't had an original thought in longer than they like to admit. Because there's been no quiet left for one to form. That should land harder than the others. Not quite left for a thought to form. Because ideas, real ones, the kind that actually change something, don't show up in the noise. They show up in the gap, the pause, the moment right after everything else goes quiet. And you've been closing that gap every single time it opens. And you've been doing this for years. Think about the last big decision you actually needed to think through clearly. Did you sit with it in silence? Or did you fill every spare minute around it with something else and made the decision half distracted? The same way you do everything else. That's the tell. Because you know how to think clearly. Yes, you do. You've just been starving yourself you're starving yourself of the one condition that makes it possible. Here's what that's doing to the people around you too. The people who love you don't get your full attention anymore. Not really. Even when you're sitting across from them, some part of you is still running. It's still scanning for the next thing. It's still uncomfortable with a pause in the conversation lasting more than a second. You know this is true. And guess what? They've noticed. Even if they never said it directly. They've noticed that being with you doesn't always feel like being fully met. It feels like competing with a hum you can't turn off. And here's the mirror. So look at it straight. Don't be afraid of it. If you never learn how to be still, you're never actually going to be fully present for anything. Not your work, not your relationships, not your own life. You'll be everywhere, all the time, and nowhere completely. Ever. That's the real risk hiding behind all your emotion. Not that you'll slow down and miss something. No, that's not how it works or how it happens. But what happens is that you'll keep moving forever and miss everything because you were never actually anywhere long enough to receive it. Because constant motion doesn't just fail to build the life you want. It actively protects you from ever finding out what the life would even require of you if you sat still long enough to hear it. Here's what staying exactly like this actually steals from you. Not just the quiet mornings, not just a few unfilled minutes. It steals the one thing stillness always was always meant to hand you. An honest look at your own life. Not managed, not distracted, just seen clearly for what it actually is. Because right now, you don't have that. You've protected yourself from ever getting it. And a life spent avoiding an honest look at itself isn't discipline. It's just a louder way of staying lost. Let's be honest. Think about what that means for the years already behind you. Every quiet moment failed before it could finish. Every idea drowned out before it could form. Every decision made half distracted instead of fully clear. Looks fine from the outside. Looks like someone busy, driven, always moving forward. But underneath it, the actual truth about your own life has been sitting there, waiting while you filled every second that might have let you hear it. That's the cause, not a dramatic collapse, just a slow, quiet postponement of the one conversation you've been having with a screen instead of yourself. And it doesn't announce itself. That's the worst part of it, because it just shows up fully formed the day you finally sit still by accident. A delayed flight, a sleepless night, a moment with nothing to reach for, and everything you've been outrunning catches up to you all at once. That's not a future risk. That's exactly where you're already headed. Yes, you are headed that way. And here's the part of the shadow that's easy to miss. It's not just costing you the quiet. It's teaching the people who look up to you the same lesson that the feed taught you. That stillness is something to avoid. That worth is measured in motion. That being quiet means being nobody. Your kid, your coworker, anyone watching how you live, they're learning they're learning that lesson from you, the same way you learned it from a screen. That's the part that should actually land the hardest. Not that you're restless, that your restlessness is quietly becoming somebody else's definition of a life well lived. The people who love you don't need you to be busy every second. They need to see you actually stop sometimes and be fully there when you do. Right now, what they're watching instead is someone who can't. Yeah, that's exactly what they're watching. And you already know the constant motion isn't who you actually are. You've known it every night your mind won't quiet down even after your body gave out. You know those nights. Yeah, those nights are terrible. And you've known it every time you call the noise ambition and felt something in you go quiet in protest. And you can keep calling that discipline. Or you can finally admit the only thing is standing between you and an honest look at your own life was never a lack of time. It was you. Yeah, you refusing to ever go still enough to take it. So here's where you stop running from the quiet and start walking into it on purpose. Everything you just heard wasn't meant to shame you. No, it was not. You had to see exactly what the emotion was protecting you from before you could ever choose to sit still on purpose. And now, you have. Yes, you have. So let's talk about what's actually waiting in the stillness. Not emptiness, something more honest than that. You. Yes, you. Without the noise covering for you. That's the whole thing you've been avoiding. Not silence itself. What silence will finally let you hear. And here's the new standard. A stillness was never about doing nothing. A stillness is the discipline of staying in the quiet long enough to hear what's true, instead of drowning it out the second it starts to surface. That's the shift right there. You've been treating motion as proof of worth. Yes, you have. Motion was never proof of anything. It was just noise dressed up as achievement. So the new rule is simple. You sit in the quiet first and you let whatever surfaces actually finish, instead of reaching for something the second it gets uncomfortable. Now, that's going to feel unbearable at first. It's supposed to. Your body has been trained to treat quiet like a threat for years. But here's what practicing this actually looks like. Small, not a silent retreat. Sit for 5 minutes today with nothing. No phone, no task, no noise. Notice the restlessness. Show up right on schedule. Let it sit there instead of feeding it. That's the whole practice. Not fixing the feeling, outlasting it. Here's the win version of this, so you know what you're actually aiming at. The win is in some peaceful state where the restlessness disappears completely. The win is smaller than that and realer. The win is the first time you sit in the quiet long enough that a real thought actually finishes, instead of getting cut off by the reach for your phone. Even if it's small, even if it's just one clear thought in 5 minutes of discomfort, that single moment, it starts proving the old training wrong. Real evidence that quiet doesn't erase you, it just lets you hear yourself. That's the win. Not peace, but proof. Here's the part I'm not going to skip because it usually gets left out. This isn't going to go perfectly. Some days you're going to reach for the noise anyway, out of pure habit, the second the quiet starts. Some days you'll sit still and nothing profound will surface, just discomfort, and then it'll be over. That's not failure. That's what retraining a body that's been running from silence for years actually looks like. The goal was never instant clarity every time. The goal is that you keep coming back to the quiet, even on the days it didn't hand you anything. Because stillness was never a one-time fix. It's a practice you keep choosing on purpose long after the noises stop being necessary. This is why I keep making this show. Because this right here, you sitting and listening to this, and with this, feeling exactly how loud your own resistance to quiet has become, this is the whole reason the Bad Influence podcast exists. Not to make you feel good for 20 minutes and send you back to the noise. To put a mirror in front of you that you can't talk your way out of. If you skip next Friday, you go back to running from the quiet alone, telling yourself it's just being driven. If you're here, you don't have to figure this out alone. So subscribe. Not for me, for the version of you that's been buried under the noise for years, waiting for 5 real minutes to finally surface. Because that version has been waiting a long time. And waiting doesn't bring it back. Only the quiet does. Picture this a year from now. You still reach for the noise sometimes. The old training doesn't disappear completely. It just stops running the whole show. But you catch it faster now. You feel the restlessness rise and you sit with it instead of feeding it immediately. You've had real thoughts finished by now. Ideas that used to get drowned out before they could form. Decisions made clear instead of half distracted. That's not luck. That's the practice you started tonight. And the noise that used to feel like proof of your worth, it doesn't feel like proof of anything anymore. It feels like exactly what it always was. A way of avoiding the one room you needed to walk into. Here's the truth underneath everything I've told you today. The quiet was never actually dangerous. No, it was not. It's a system that profits off your attention needed you to believe it was. So it trained you to run from it before you ever got old enough to question it. And, worst of all, you've been obeying that training long after anyone required it of you. It doesn't belong in your mornings. It doesn't belong in your relationships. No, it does not. It doesn't belong anywhere near the one mind you were given to actually think with. So tonight, this is your move. Plain and simple. Sit still for 5 real minutes. Let the restlessness show up and let it sit there instead of reaching for something to drown it out. And stop calling the noise discipline, because it is not. You might find out something true surfaces the second you stop running from it. It could be an idea. It could be the best thing ever in your life. Or you might find out exactly how loud the training still is. Either way, you'll know something real instead of managing something restless. Because the life that actually matters was never built by the person who stayed the busiest. It was built by the one willing to go quiet long enough to hear the truth and act on it. Your mind has been waiting for 5 real minutes for a long time now. Stop drowning it out. Yes, just stop. Sit still on purpose. It's starting now. Find out what you've been running from. Yes, find out. And I know it can be scary, but it's something that will set you free. Because at the end of the day, remember this. The choice is yours.